Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Oh, so many beautiful faces. And I'm Denny, and I'm an alcoholic. And what a pleasure to be here on Easter. And I hope you all had a wonderful day with your families and that you were blessed in every way with this beautiful day, with the weather, and all that it has, all that this way of life has for us. So Leslie asked me to speak, and at the time, I thought that was a really good idea. I thought, oh, sure, why not? Yeah, yeah. But the day has gone on, I've got more and more nervous. And now I've had 2 or 3 cups of coffee. So she said we were going to just go 40 minutes. Hey, put on your seatbelts. We might be here all night. I don't know. I don't know. Or I'll have one of those horrible senior moments and I can't remember a darn thing, much less find my fanny with the search warrant, which was my story when I got here. I could not find my fanny with the search warrant for love or money. But let me start at the beginning. And I got a dear friend here tonight, Liz, and she and I were talking earlier this week. And I said, Liz, you know how it is when you open up a new bank account and then you have to answer these security questions like, what did you want to be when you grow up? Well, alcoholic wasn't on the list. I that was not my intention. I wanted to be a ballerina. Actually, I wanted to be a nightclub singer. And I told my mama that, oh, because I wanted to wear those slinky dresses and, prance around the stage and maybe smoke a cigarette or something. I'm 5 years old when I tell my mother I want to be a nightclub singer. And she says, well, honey, that's just great, but you can't sing. So there you are. That career totally ruined. So that left me with, and I think I should go back and put alcoholic on my security question. I don't think anybody would ever guess that. So, but I come by alcoholism honestly. I'm Irish Catholic, for starters. Um, my dad was an alcoholic. And oh my gosh, if any of you have grown up in alcoholism, there's no words to even describe what that is like. I attended a workshop not too long ago, and it was a trauma workshop. And so the leader gave us a little test, and she said, check how many of these you might have that would indicate trauma. And so I did. There's 10. And then she asked everybody in our group there, raise your hand if you've had one. And there were a few timid hands. Raise your hand if you've had two. A few more hands. Raise your hand if you've had three. Well, finally, one hand went up. I had 9 out of 10. I was not about to raise my hand. That is what it was like for me growing up in alcoholism. And so by the time I'm 21 years old, living on the Mexican border, having dropped out of 4 colleges, let's put it this way, drank my way out of 4. Having dropped out of all these colleges, having survived the 60s, as it were, I'm now living on the border, Mexican border, in Brownsville, Texas. And I'm every Saturday night, I'm going over to Mexico and I'm buying a bottle of Chivas Regal. How can you be an alcoholic if you're drinking Chivas? Well, but here was the problem. I was sitting alone by myself, drinking Chivas, and watching the Lawrence Welk show. Some of you are going to know who I'm talking about. But it was this goofy guy from North Dakota who would have, have this variety show with the, I mean, today it would be camp, but back then it was just bizarre. But here's what was going on. I was beginning to enjoy it. And I thought, what has happened to me? I'm not supposed to be that person. I'm not going to, oh, that's not me. I'm becoming an alcoholic. That was the first time I realized that my drinking was out of control. I'm drinking by myself. I'm barely 20 years old, 21 years old, and watching Lawrence Welk. And I thought, I'm becoming an alcoholic like my daddy. I'll be damned if I'm going to become an alcoholic. I'm going to become a drug addict instead. Now, this is a problem because mainly, if you remember, I said I'm living on the Mexican border. I didn't know where to get drugs. So the only person I knew who had drugs at that time turned out to be my heartthrob of all time. I was just crazy for this guy. God, he was everything a woman could want in a man. Had been to Woodstock. He had hair to his butt. And he was a convicted felon. I mean, the perfect trifecta. How could you not have a better man in your life than that? Now, in all honesty, he was a convicted felon because he did sell a marijuana-laced brownie to the sheriff of Aspen, Colorado. And he got 10 years probation. Became a convicted felon, could no longer vote, blah, 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 blah. But I think that just added more to the mystery of him. But as it were, he was the only person I knew who had any drugs. And so I haul off from Texas and I go to Colorado to set up housekeeping with this guy. Now, what that means to any of you, and kind of what Leslie was talking about a little bit earlier, I can never say, oh, I can't go to that meeting. It's too far away. Because I was willing to drive 1,500 miles for a joint. So that excuse went right out the window. So that, I was running out of excuses of why I didn't need to go to AA at that time. Okay, so I married this guy. Well, I eloped, called my mother up, collect. That was a glorious day for her. Oh, she was horrified beyond belief. You can't even imagine. But nonetheless, we bought a town. They were pretty cheap back then in the day to buy little towns in Colorado. And we bought a town. It had 4 houses, rental houses. It had a gas station. It had a general store. And it had a U.S. post office. Because I was not a convicted felon, I became the U.S. postmaster of this little town in Colorado outside Winter Park, which is a ski area. And I became the U.S. postmaster, ran the houses. I'm 22 years old. I'm one of the youngest U.S. postmasters in the country. Now, there was a slight problem. I wore sunglasses all the time in the post office. I didn't want anybody seeing how red my eyes were from all the drinking and drugging and carrying on from the night before. And so if you go in and see your postmaster wearing sunglasses, I'm going to say there might be a problem. Little did I know that in the years afterwards, the U.S. Postal Service began one of the strongest employee assistance programs to help employees with alcohol and substance use disorders. But this was before then. And in fact, what happened is I kind of got into trouble with the U.S. Postal Service. You see, Richard Nixon was my boss. I had a big picture of Richard Nixon in the post office, and my job, which was a full time job, keeping the hippies, those hippies, from blacking out his teeth. You know, I'd have to go back and erase them, put white out, put his teeth back in. It was a nightmare. And so I'm trying to hold this whole thing together when 20,000 hippies show up in the backyard. They're called the Rainbow Family. As a matter of fact, they're still here. There's still remnants of the Rainbow Family running around. And these people, um, they were running around and camping out in the woods and all this kind of stuff. And they liked the store that I was running because we had pomegranates and European cheeses and yogurt and organic foods, that kind of stuff. And so they were all over the post office. Well, the local postal patrons called the, the big honcho down in Denver and reported me. And he comes up the mountain and he is going to read me the riot act. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I think maybe I was too young when I got sober. Maybe, I mean, they've come out with new booze since I've gotten sober. Maybe they even got better drugs now. I mean, well, drugs, but I mean, we didn't have the good stuff like Oxy. We just had the Darvon and the Darvocet and all that crap. But then I have to remember that moment when that SCF from Denver came up to read me the riot act. Because he comes storming into the post office and the general store. And he said, "You're the postmaster." "Yes, I am, sir." "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've heard reports that there's hippies all over this post office. They're fornicating in the aisles. It's a terrible thing you have going on up here. These people, your friends." I was stunned. My friends? You, I have friends? I was floored. I didn't have any friends. I had lost friends a long time ago. I was just interested in drinking and drugging and trying to keep everything together and going skiing. I did a lot of skiing. And he said, "Your friends." I said, "I don't have any friends. I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Sir, all I want to do, I cannot, these are true words. All I want to do, bullshit. All I want to do is serve my postal patrons and provide ambiance and culture to this otherwise little tiny town. That's all I want to do." And he said, "Really? Well, how do you do that?" I said, and this is where I go, this is why I am a bona fide alcoholic. It doesn't even matter how much I used or didn't use. But I have this secret power that everyone in this room has. I knew how to get them off my back. Now, what did I have to do to make that happen? I looked at him, and you know how we can read people? It's kind of like a lock. Where is it? Where is it? Where? And finally, I looked up at him. I said, "Sir, all I want to do in the afternoons is back there by the coal burning stove. I want to play chess with anybody who will want to play with me." He says, "You play chess?" I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, Well, I'm a life master. Well, I said, what's your opening gambit? I said, honey, just keep those hippies out of this post office. Make sure you lock it up and you'll be okay. And he was off my back. That any one of us can do. That is a superpower that I cannot use anymore. I can't blow people off anymore. That's something I've had to give up if I want to stay clean and sober. I got to listen and pay attention today. But so at that point in time, though, I was getting really tired of being a postmaster. And I was tired of skiing, 90 times a year. Oh, God, we got to go skiing again. I cannot believe I did that. And so I decided, along with some other friends, to go to Mexico and and I called my mother up to tell her that I've had a rough year and that I am going to Mexico. My mother, by this time, my dad had gotten into recovery and he was a recovering physician and he had gotten clean and sober himself. And my mother had started Al-Anon. And so when I called her up to say, I'm going to Mexico, I'm so tired. Oh my God, you can't believe how hard this has been. She said, here's what she said to me. Call me when you get back. Guys, gals, I went off the grid. I'm hitchhiking around Mexico. I end up in Guatemala. How I got there is beyond me, but I did. Somehow I got all the way down there, and I was down there for 6 weeks. And I started hanging out with these people who were Europeans, primarily Europeans, and there was one albino Navajo Indian. It was just kind of a strange group of people, and we were all hanging out at Tikal. And now many of you have seen Tikal. It's considered the eighth wonder of the world. Well, it happens to be the opening scene from the Star Wars movies about that pyramid out in the jungle. Next time you see Star Wars, pay attention. That's Tikal. And so I'm out there with these people, and they're doing something that I was not familiar with. They were drinking coffee and talking to each other at night around a kerosene lantern. That's not what I did with my crowd or the few friends I did have at the time. And I realized I couldn't hang with them. I needed a drink. And there wasn't anything to drink in the middle of the jungle. And so I looked, I can still see that picture in my mind and see them sitting there and feeling so separate and so apart and wanting so much to be part of. But this illness was cutting me out of the herd big time. And I didn't know what to do. So I went and got in my hammock. Now I'm going to give you a little heads up. If you should go camping in the jungle in Guatemala, just saying, take a hammock. You do not want to sleep on the floor. Lots of bugs, snakes, icky things. So get in a hammock and you'll be fine. But the monkeys start screaming and it's just blasting out my ears, all these monkeys. And there's a full moon. I don't know how I got to where I was. I don't know how I'm going to get out of there. I don't know where to go next. I'm out of answers. I always had an answer up till then. I didn't have any more answers. I just didn't know what to do. So I did something very unusual for me. You see, I was not raised in a church. I was raised Unitarian. And so, which is really, we believe, or growing up, we believed that science was the answer, and how smart you are is the answer. And I kind of realized at that moment in the hammock with the monkeys screaming, I was out of answers. I couldn't think my way out of a paper bag. And I did something very unusual. But as it come to find out, it's something that all of us do when we're at that place and we're just so lost, so scared, so alone. I made my very first prayer and I said these words: God, help me. And he did. Within 3 weeks, I am in a jitter joint, better known as a treatment center, at the, or I always called it the Palace for the Peculiar, in Mandan, North Dakota. Now, how does that happen? Because there's a God, and he'd had enough of my shenanigans. I'm pretty sure he was sick and tired of having to watch me kill myself, as it were. But I ended up going to treatment, rehab, in Mandan, North Dakota on July 12th, 1974. I just turned 26 years old. Everything I owned was in a backpack. I took a look around at the treatment center and I noticed there were a lot of boxes of Kleenex. I thought, oh, that's odd. I wonder what that's for. When you're like me, you can't afford to cry. We don't cry. But I thought, we had a store where we could go buy stuff. And so I went down to the store and I said, I'd like to order some waterproof mascara in case I cry. Well, that was a waste of money. I couldn't cry. I was so frozen up. I mean, so shut down and so frozen up that I don't know why I even thought a tear could squeak out of my eye, but just in case. While I was in rehab, and this was back in the day that, anyway, I was there 72 days. Fortunately for me, it was an AA-based program. Fortunately for me, there were some things I got from that program that are with me today that have saved my bucket. First of all, a lot of people wouldn't want to sit near me. They had never seen anything quite like me before. This girl comes in, straight from Guatemala, and is sitting there and kind of gorped out, pretty much a vegetable. Believe it or not, I couldn't talk back then. As a matter of fact, I could only say 3 things: far out, too much, and that's heavy. I was a horrible group member. If you keep that up, you're going to have bad karma. Oh, those poor people. As a matter of fact, I think I single-handedly taught my first AA group patience and tolerance. How they put up with me is beyond my understanding, but they did. But there's 2 things I learned besides the beauty of what Alcoholics Anonymous is about. It's this. I learned about patterns, and here was one of my patterns that was tripping me up and ruining my life. And it happened this way. The husband, who I wanted to come to the family program, mainly so everybody could yell at him about how horrible he was to me. Oddly, he didn't want to come. No. So I called him up and I said, Hi, what are you doing? And he says, I'm drinking a gin and tonic. What are you doing? That was my drink. That jerk, that was my drink. He never did. I got so mad I couldn't even see straight and got off the phone with him. And I thought, this is it. I am out of here. I want to drink, and I want to drink right now, which is kind of hard when you're in the middle of a treatment center. But lucky for me, I was with a bunch of women, and one of them saw me just stomping around, slamming doors, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I told her, I said, "He's not, he's not going to come, and furthermore, he's drinking, and I want to drink." I had not wanted to drink up to that point in treatment. Well, she talked me off the ledge. She got me not to drink. I made it my, and she said, well, "Are you going to drink today?" I said, no, I won't drink today. But that's not where I stop. You see, I'm a runner and I will run. And so I went to my room and I started packing my bags. This is not working. He's not coming here. This is a wasted time. I got to get out of this place. And someone came in and they said, another woman came in and she said, "Where are you going?" "Oh, I don't really know. I don't even care." She said, "Didn't you do a lot of that before you got here?" And I said, "Well, yeah, kind of, sort of. Yeah. And she said, "Do you really want to keep running?" I was running out of places to run to. And I said, "No, I don't want to run." But gals, guys, here's another place I go to. If I'm not going to drink and I'm not going to run, I got a third option, which historically I always went to. It's called, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to jump in front of a parked car. I'm ending it all right now. And not to make light of that situation, but that's pain. Just trying to deal with pain and not knowing how to deal with it. And so lucky for me, another woman came in and helped talk me off the ledge. So then the beauty of recovery started to happen for me. And that was, I had a new choice. I'd never had this before in my life. I had a new choice. And as painful as it was the right thing to do. And the choice was this: face it. He's not there for you. In fact, he never was. You just didn't want to believe it. Well, now you know. So that's what happened for me. I still go through that process. When I get overwhelmed and filled with pain and don't know what to do, I want to drink or drug, run, or go crazy. Or lately, crawl into bed with my two favorite men, Ben and Jerry. So, we have a thing going on, I'll just say. But that is a pattern, and that's something that has been incredibly important to me in my recovery. And I hope if it helps anyone here tonight, I hope it helps you too. Because that was what was round and round and round. Talk about step 2 over and over and over again. The other thing I learned in rehab that I was totally saved my bucket then as it does now. If you feel like drinking, tell somebody. I'd rather tell you anything. I'll tell you about my income taxes, my sex life. I'll even talk about my hemorrhoids. But to talk about I want to drink, you know how personal that is? Oh my God. But that's the one thing that if you anybody can learn that here tonight, if you feel like drinking, just tell somebody. Don't keep it a secret. You see, I got out of rehab after 72 days, and the very first thing that happened when I got out of rehab and my mama got me home, and there were all those bright lights and all this carrying on, and I was overwhelmed. I wanted to drink. And I was so embarrassed. I thought, what have I done wrong? I mean, I thought I did everything. I did a fifth step, for goodness sakes. I thought I did everything right. And it was this fight going on inside of me. And I was trying to take a nap, and it's back and forth, back and forth. And finally, that little tiny voice said, remember what they said? If you feel like drinking, tell someone. And then the other voice said, they just want to ruin your good time. You're too young to be doing all this stuff. You got to be. And finally, this little voice says, all they were trying to do is save your life. Oh, okay. So I went and I told my mom. I said, Mom, I don't know how to tell you this after you spent all that money. Back then, treatment was really cheap. Let me just say, that was 1974. But after you spent all that money, I don't know how to tell you this. And she said, what's that, hon? I said, I feel like drinking. She said, that's okay. You're an alcoholic. That's what alcoholics feel like doing. I bet you're a little overwhelmed today. I am overwhelmed. I didn't know how to identify feelings, so everything was a drink until I learned how to identify. Oh, that's overwhelmed. Oh, that's pain. Oh, that's anger. Oh, that's fear. Oh, that's confused. I didn't know how to do that. So those were really, really important things that helped me the most, was learning about my patterns. And then I'm one of these weird people. I did not get sober on the steps. I was too sick. I was too sick for the steps. What got me sober were the traditions. I know a lot of you think they're boring. Most people do. But let's look at them. And I'll run through them real quick. But number one, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. What does that mean? We don't gossip. We don't do that. That's what other people, earthlings, do, but we don't. And so whenever anybody comes up to me to tell me some gossip, you know what I'm don't need to hear it. I don't have a need to know. That's tradition one. Tradition two is for our group purpose, there's one ultimate authority. And guess what, gang? It ain't me. I had to quit playing God. It's kind of a step three thrown in there. Quit playing God, thinking I know what's best for everybody. Had to quit doing that. Number three, the only requirement for AA membership is the desire to stop drinking. What does that mean? It means the only requirement to be a friend for you and for me is for me to be myself. No more of this game playing crap that I was doing all the time. But that's what it means. Be myself. And myself is not gorked out on alcohol and drugs. Every group should be autonomous in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. What does it mean? Mind my own business. God, I went to, for one solid year, every AA meeting I went to was mind your own business. You think that was the message? Well, there it is right there. Mind your own business. Number 5, each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholics who still suffers. And what is your primary purpose? I know for me that it says clearly in the 12 and 12 that my primary purpose is to be one in a family, a friend among friends, a worker among workers, a useful member of society. And that is exactly how my grandmother, dear Miss Jessie, lived. She came by that naturally. I've had to learn how to do that. Number 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to outside, all that kind of stuff. What does that mean? That is a perfect way for me to learn and check the number one question any of us can ask ourselves, or our sponsors will ask us: what are your motives? What are your motives? And that's something we've always got to remind myself. What are my motives? Number 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. I love that one. Make your bed. That is how you can become fully self-supporting. Make your bed. Who knew? That's simple. Also, get a job. You know, or if you can't get a job, help out around the house. Maybe do something for somebody else, like clean their car out. Just thoughts. But be self-supporting. What is the greatest feeling in the whole wide world? Even if you don't have money, you can be self-supporting. Make your bed. Okay. And then 8 is Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. That's so good. When I got out of treatment, I wanted to be a junior counselor. Oh, yeah. Hi-ho and away. And I wanted to make sure that I could help everybody I ran into. You need to go to rehab. You need to do this. We don't do that. I can no longer tell others what to do. I don't care what it is. It's not my place to tell somebody else what to do. AA is number 9. AA is such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible. You know what that means? That means get a team. You don't have to be your own doctor. You don't have to be your own banker. You don't have to be your own attorney. You get professionals to do all that for you. That's what I've learned at Matt. I've gotten those things. I got a dentist. I've got my own doctor. These are things that are these are adulting things. Do I need to stop? Oh, 5 minutes? Okay. Okay, 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Don't you love that one? That's the best way to avoid a family fight at Thanksgiving. Right there. No opinion. I was out to lunch this very afternoon with my dear precious daughter-in-law who wanted to express some opinions on outside issues. Oh boy, I wanted to, but I didn't. Sidestep. Okay. Number 10, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. You may be the only big book somebody will see. I know that that's what my dad was to me. He was my big book. I hated that man with a purple passion when he was drinking. He was a terrible drunk. He got clean and sober. He started working this program with all of his heart. He did everything he was supposed to do. He went to meetings. He had a sponsor. He did all of that. Within 3 years, I wanted what he had. The man had peace of mind. He had serenity. I'd never, it was astounding to me. He was the big book. He lived it, he breathed it, and he didn't ever try and tell me what to do anymore. Oh, it was, we had, he, we, he was my hero. And anyway, I could tell lots of stories about him. And then let's get on to number 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. I gotta tell you, there's a lot of people in AA. Everybody said, "Oh, I love everybody." You don't have to like everybody. There's a lot of people I don't like, and guess what? There's a lot of people who don't like me either. But you know what? I listen to them because if they have something I need to hear, I better open up my ears and listen. Principles above personalities. It is a phenomenal gift that tradition 12 is. So that's a little bit of how I had to get well enough to do the steps. I love the traditions. I'm a traditions wonk. I've done a few workshops on traditions and relationships, and it's my favorite thing to do because these are such great guidelines. AA tells us how to get sober. The traditions tell us how to interact with other people and be the person that I was meant to be, that my Creator intended me to be, as yours did you. My God did not want me to be drunk in the borrow ditch in Guatemala. He had other plans for me. And I know as I sit here, he has other plans for you. And I'll tell you what the first feeling I had when I got to my very first AA meeting. This guy stood up at the front of the room and he said, "Hi, my name's Johnny and I'm an alcoholic." And the whole audience went, "Hi, Johnny." And it was the first time in my life ever I felt finally at home. So for any of you out there, welcome home.